There are many interpretations about dreaming of flying. It can symbolize new opportunities, confronting fears, or future potential. Flying dreams can be smooth or filled with turmoil. For Efteling's 40th anniversary in 1992, they would aim to add an attraction where you could take a dream flight with your eyes open. A ride with no real story, built from the idea of loosely connected dreams. Its creation was more of a nightmare filled with turmoil, but eventually that nightmare turned into a dream, with one of the most beautiful dark rides ever created. In the late 80s, Efteling was looking for its next attraction. BRC Imagination Arts came up with the idea of a hanging gondola dark ride called Quest. Early development and feasibility models were made with Vekoma, yet the idea never went past the design phase after a change in management at the park. For 1992, the park's 40th anniversary, and with competition in Europe rising with the arrival of Disneyland Paris, it had to be something special. And the idea of a hanging dark ride would once again become the top idea. At the IAAPA Expo in 1989, Efteling began talking with the British company CPM, Computerized People Movers, part of the Thames Valley Lift Company Group, who built elevator systems. CPM, who formed in 1970, would be working on plans to create a monorail at Chester Zoo. Efteling asked them if they could do something similar, but as a hanging system. CPM promised it would be no problem and convinced Efteling that they could easily do it. With the company's good track record, it inspired confidence in the purchase, and a modified version of their monorail system could let people have the illusion of flying. Excited at the prospect, Ton van der Ven came up with 5 or 6 small paintings that would be a guide for what the ride could be, and it was approved to become Efteling's major anniversary attraction, with the work entitled Daydream from those paintings alone.
Kom mee en zweef door een wereld die je tot nu toe alleen uit je dromen kende. Droomvlucht. Het allermooiste dat de Efteling ooit is overkomen.
With the rough concept in hand, the budget was worked out and cut down to make an exciting yet beautiful attraction. For its unique ride vehicles that CPM promised, it did not start well. During a test setup, the engine seized up and was throwing smoke everywhere. The gondola system was also too small. They insisted, however, that everything would be fine and could be adjusted. After construction started in 1991, CPM had told the park that everything was on track and Efteling were expecting the arrival of pillars that were essential for work to continue from CPM. They did not arrive, and there was no response from them. CPM had gone bankrupt. With no hope of continuing the project with them, Efteling purchased the prototype and would try and find someone else to finish the attraction. Efteling had to find a new maker for the ride quickly. For the track, they turned to German steel manufacturer BHS, regular supplier of Schwarzkopf roller coasters, but they were unable to make the gondolas for the attraction. 2 Dutch companies were approached, but would not take on the project due to the short time frame. In 1990, Blackpool Pleasure Beach had opened a suspended flying dark ride called The Greatest Show on Earth. It was having problems of itself, so that left only one other real option. Efteling would find the company Translift Monorail in the UK, who had made carts that drove autonomously through factories. They would take over the project for the original budget set. Translift began working from drawings that CPM had calculated, yet they had the wrong calculations. After construction was finally complete, during testing they loaded up the gondolas with the estimated weight of 3 people, but they could not make it up the attraction's inclines. The motors were not strong enough. The entire technical design of the gondola drive system had to be remade. as the 40th year of Efteling approached, it would not be ready in time to celebrate the anniversary. As it got later and later, the park took the decision to postpone the attraction to 1993, missing the 40th anniversary. At a press conference, the park said that it was a big disappointment for the 150 people of the Efteling who had been working on making the ride a reality for over 2 years now. Many tour groups had already booked the ride, and they went ahead. Rather than get to ride, many tours were given walking through the attraction, which was mostly complete, but not working, during the 1992 season. From what people saw, the attraction was very promising. Designed by Tom van der Ven, the theme of the new attraction will be based on those 5 or 6 drawings around mythical creatures in the forest in a dreamlike atmosphere. The gondola floating aspect had inspired the thought of flying through a dream. These scenes would not be connected with each other in an overarching story, calling back to the fairy tale forest, the main part of Efteling, and they hoped that each person riding would have their own interpretation of what was happening within their flight. 4.5 million euros over budget at 12.5 million, Droomvlucht, or Dreamflight in English, would have its issues fixed and soft open in April 1993. Beautiful scenes, relaxing music, and different scents would greet those inside. After passing through the large facade, you enter your gondola as it takes flight through a cave and the dream begins, entering the first section, the castle realm. As the gondolas ascend, you see the floating castles, 3 waterfalls, and a fog-covered lake with its state-of-the-art fog system that used real water sprayed at high pressure to create the effect using agricultural techniques. When it works. Most of the rocks found within were carved from foam, and the whole scene with the fog and lighting is designed to create a dreamlike atmosphere with the castle slowly moving to make it feel even more dreamlike. The dream continues as after a short corridor as you enter the magical, wondrous forest. The second dream, filled with fairies and creatures as you look down on the scenes below, which included special effects such as Pepper Ghost and many different creatures and characters. Next, as the smell of flowers greet you, you head through a tunnel and enter the Elf Garden and meet Oberon himself, the king of the elves. The garden is packed full of elves in an enchanted forest filled with flowers. King Oberon waves at you as you pass by. The character of Oberon has an origin in medieval and Renaissance literature. The next scene through the Star Tunnel is the Heavenly Castles. Twinkling lights, floating castles, and several moons circle in front of a starlit sky. The final scene, the most thrilling section of the attraction, spiraling down into the forest and making this a family thrill ride. Some even consider this ride a roller coaster due to this section. It is not. As the ride ends, you have now awoken from your dream flight. The treble creation of the attraction was behind it, and on June 10th, 1993, 1 year delayed, Dreamflight officially opened to visitors with a grand celebration featuring mythical creatures, rainstorms, and fireworks which accidentally set part of the entrance on fire. The response to the ride was overwhelmingly positive. Guests could now dream with their eyes open. On a ride that was over budget, had to change manufacturers due to a bankruptcy of a company, and a 4-year delay, it hadn't stopped Dreamflight from becoming a must-do attraction at the Efteling. While higher-tech animatronics were available at the time of the ride's creation, it was purposely chosen to use simple characters, featuring slight movements only. Each figure has the minimum equipment within it to make it operate, allowing them to be seen from more angles than if it had to be tethered to the ground with large high-tech requirements. The animatronics have no sound made from within them, and it was the soundtrack that provided the feel and atmosphere of the ride. Each scene uses a different musical theme composed by Ruud Bos, who had created many of the incredible soundtracks for the Efteling, and in this case used it to create a feeling of looking in on the dream world seen before riders. Within, multiple scents are used to make the atmosphere feel even deeper. While many gondola rides put you inside a scene, floating over it, Dreamflight maintains the feel of looking into an existing area throughout. During opening year, demands were so high that lines reached hours long. Originally, the ride was planned to have a 2,000 people per hour capacity, realistically expecting around 1,800 per hour. When opening in 1993, it was a long way from this, with only 950 people per hour able to ride. This led to incredibly long lines, often multiple hours to ride this new attraction. A year after opening, more gondolas were added to the attraction, taking it from 21 to 28, increasing capacity by a third. Each vehicle is connected to 2 gondolas, with a rod hanging on their own gearbox as they pass through the attraction. The ride's capacity was increased further when the ride's descent in the final scene was also sped up. Each vehicle uses quite loud motors to move through the attraction. They are able to self-control their speed to keep distance between vehicles ahead. During 1996, in a lawsuit, makers of amplifiers for the vehicles, AEG, were sued by Translift due to warning lights coming on during testing of the steepest uphill sections of the ride, and the sensors being set too low. The track, supplied by BHS, is 1,395 feet long, with a steepest climb of 12.9% and a drop of 5.2%. During the final scene, you are around 40 feet in the air before you drop down through the helix at up to 11 miles per hour. It might sound slow, but it's quite the surprise. Many changes, mostly small, have come to the attraction over the years. In 1996, the queue for the attraction was relocated, and the original hall turned into an event hall due to its popularity. A stage was built, and from 1997 to 2001, a show was performed for those waiting in the long lines. They even made a full musical within the park based on the attraction. Over the years, updates have come to the characters within, the scenes, and especially the lighting. The ride since opening has not been wheelchair accessible, but a VR experience of the attraction was added so visitors who could not ride could experience the Dreamflight. Evacuation routes and walkways were also added within the attraction due to stricter safety regulations. The vehicles can continue to the tunnels if they have not lost power, where an exit stands. In the rare case, a ladder may be used to get people down from the gondolas. The attraction has continued to be updated with track replacements and fixes every decade since opening, but the essence of the ride still remains the same as it did back in 1993. Oberon even got his shoes back. Dreamflight is beautiful, surreal, and in true Efteling style, a little odd. One of the best dark rides anywhere in the world. Developed by Ton van der Ven before he retired from the park in 2002, each of his additions could be considered some of the best theme park attractions to ever exist. As parks around the world continue to bring higher tech dark rides that bombard you with action, Dreamflight stands up as something unique, and something that is needed just as much at theme parks today. A true classic that never goes out of style, where you can dream with your eyes open. Dreamflight is perhaps the best example of an attraction that makes you feel like you are dreaming. As you float by the scenes, it takes multiple rides to see every detail that takes place. What started from the idea of floating gondolas turned into something special, from a ride with a nightmare start to today, over 30 years later, still a dream dark ride. While many attractions around the world today try to create a linear story from start to finish, many of Tom van der Ven's best rides are not like this. Efteling often lets you put together the story in your imagination and let you create the story yourself that can be anything you can imagine. Dreamflight is definitely one of the most beautiful dark rides anywhere in the world, and many say that it doesn't have a story, but yet, if you imagine deeper, it does. More accurate than most. Dreaming, you fall asleep and fly through a magical realm into a forest, flying higher and higher into the night sky before falling back down through the forest and waking up. What could be more dreamlike than that? Thank you so much for watching this episode of Expedition Efteling. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to join the expedition. Follow us on social media for updates on upcoming episodes, and a special thank you to our Patreons for supporting the channel. We will see you next time.